Morning. I had a moment of thinking, this is nice to see everyone. I wonder when John's going to start talking. No, there we are. Let's sit for a few minutes while we wait for people to trickle in. The perennial Zen question, what is it like to be here? There we go, that's meditation summed up in 7 words. What is it like to be here? If I had one question to take with me for the rest of my life, that's what it would be. And I had that same thought again. I wonder what John's going to talk about this morning. It's kind of great. Lets me off the hook, really. Well, thanks for being here. It's really I think it's a wonderful gift to get to hold this. Like the holding of it, you know. Like there's some little part of me that gets excited and a little bit anxious every time I'm going to teach, and then there's some other part of me that feels like it's going to be really nice to hold, just to hold something together, hold whatever it is that we're having together, and it's nice. I figure you guys will help me, you know. I appreciate that. So this morning, is it kind of funny actually? We're doing this koan. This was unintentional, but I'll give you the koan. Dizang asked Fayan, where are you going from here? Fayan had come to Dizang's temple, and Dizang asked him, where are you going from here? Fayan said, I'm on pilgrimage. That's the thing the old Zen people used to do, and I suppose spiritual people in any tradition, really. There's pilgrimage in any spiritual tradition. They go around and visit different teachers or different, sacred sites or whatever it is. Wander the roads, become, what was it that Basho called it? But a bare skeleton exposed to the elements. Such you become on pilgrimage. So what sort of thing is pilgrimage? I don't know. Not knowing is most intimate. And then Fayan suddenly had a great awakening. You can imagine what that's like. I mean, I can imagine what it's like that not knowing is most intimate is that same moment that Ling Yun, the other pilgrim, had wandering in the forest. He got lost as he rounded a bend. The peach blossoms from across the valley exploded in his face. And that the world just comes so near. And I'm sure if you've done Zen for, a little bit, or even if you haven't done Zen, you've probably had that experience when the world is just right here. And it could just be for a split second. It could be the smell of rain before the rain comes, or the smell after the rain comes, or the smell of freshly cut grass, or a sunset, or a baby, or anything. Someone dying, sitting with someone who's dying, or a moment of great frustration. I don't tend to think of those moments as most intimate, but the moment when, let's see, what was my last moment of frustration? Well, I had several of them yesterday, getting my toddler son in and out of his car seat. He wants to hold on to something, but I've got to get his hands through the straps. And in that moment, my frustration is most intimate with frustration. It is the entire world in that moment, right? So that's kind of interesting, actually. I can tell in that moment, I've got some big story, right? Like yesterday, we were down in, so I'm in Hawaii, and we were down in Hilo, where they've got a great big farmer's market every Sunday, and we were down at the farmer's market, and the car was parked along the street, and I'm always kind of paranoid about getting in other people's way, and slightly paranoid about getting hit by a car, but much more paranoid about getting in somebody's way. And so I'm trying to get him into his car seat, and we're right on the street, and I put him into it, and it's hot out. He wants to hold on to whatever it is, his water bottle or his ball or something like that. And I was just completely consumed by that frustration and that kind of anxiety about, I've got to get you into this car seat right now, and you've got to give me the ball. And so I tend to think, well, I might think, well, that's a moment where my story about the world gets in between me and the world. All right, because, well, if I was just with him then, but no, the intimate thing is being frustrated. Get in your car seat, or oh my God, we're going to get hit by a car, or whatever it is. So there's that side of intimacy too, right? Just whatever is here is just here, and we're in it, and it's the entire universe. Right? There's no separation between me and my frustration. There's not even a me to be frustrated or not frustrated. It's just frustration. So I find that kind of reassuring, actually, that you can't get away from it. The intimacy of the world is always coming forward. It's always inviting. It's always embracing like that. This might be your opinion about what you like and what you don't like that gets in the way of being intimate with it. And so anyway, so pilgrimage. So it's kind of an interesting thing, a funny coincidence, actually, that a bunch of our teachers are on pilgrimage in Japan right now. Allison Atwill and John Tarrant and Tess Beasley, who I just got a message from this morning saying she got food poisoning in Paris, which is, of all places to get food poisoning, that's probably one of the more stylish places. And John Joseph and David Weinstein. I think that's all of them. But they're taking a pilgrimage to Kyoto. And some of them have been, David Weinstein and John Joseph have spent lots of time in Japan and studied there and speak fluent Japanese. But I think John Tarrant, Allison, I don't think have ever been there, and Tess have not been there. And so it's kind of an interesting thing. I remember talking to David Weinstein about what they were going to do on their trip. And somebody suggested, well, we could do a temple, we could do a temple tour. That would be cool. We're Zen people, right? We're going to do a temple tour. But, people weren't really into that. They wanted something more intimate, I think, which is, well, what is Kyoto? What sort of thing is Kyoto? Let's sample the food. Let's see the art. Let's meet the people. Let's walk the streets. Let's, so like that. Less of an agenda, I suppose. And there's a thing about the physical pilgrimage that brings us into contact with that way of meeting life, I think, because you can only take so much. I noticed this very acutely moving from Washington to Hawaii just a few weeks ago. You can only take so much. And so there's a nakedness that you meet life with, right? Whatever it is. Oh my God, what if I had this collection of screws, random screws and nuts and bolts that I've been accumulating for like at least 10 years or something. And I remember going through our stuff and finding that jar of nuts and bolts and being like, what if we get to Hawaii and I need one of these screws for something? It's just like, I haven't needed them yet. We've only been here for 2 weeks, but you never know. Like, we've been to Home Depot 3 or 4 times, but still I haven't needed those screws. But that thing about, what if I need whatever it is, my screws, my favorite shirt, my sense of who I am, my idea about how the world can go, and then it gets deeper and deeper and deeper like that, And so in a way, that's the pilgrimage of anything, actually, whether you're going to Japan or wandering from Zen temple to Zen temple or moving across the Pacific or starting a course on underwater basket weaving at the community college or having a child or meeting a new friend or whatever. Is that pilgrimage of, it's not even so much about the walking, but what the journey does to us, how the experience acts on us, how life acts on us in the meantime. Makes me think of Deshan, who was a great Zen scholar. He was the king of the Diamond Sutra, and kind of a perfect archetypal example of somebody who's really, really smart and really, really knows a lot of stuff, and then runs into some Zen people and just gets stopped. Who just gets stopped, and has an intimate moment with a tea lady at first, and then a teacher named Long Tan, Dragon Pool. He stays with him for, I don't know, a bunch of years. But that's the thing, right? He carries around his copies of the Diamond Sutra and his commentaries about the Diamond Sutra so that he can know things. He knows how we do that, right? We cart around all our things and who I am and what I do. And my dad, who's retired now, made a comment several years ago, and he said, hanging around with all these retired people is really interesting. The conversation is a lot of times about what I used to do, what I used to be. So there's that for people who are retired and people who are not retired, whatever it is. It's kind of interesting to look at, well, what's your reference point for who you are and what life is? And where do you return to? That's your easy answer about what anything is, your own personal cliches. Alison Atwell said that a great thing to me when my son was very young and I was like losing my mind. She just said, she's just like incredible author of great one-liners. And she said, you never know what you're capable of until you have a child. Wow, yeah, that really sort of encompasses the whole thing, right? Like incredibly deep love and surprise and terror and rage and absolute feelings of incompetency and all of that stuff. I didn't know I was capable of any of those things until I had a child. And that's the intimacy thing. I think, I don't even know who I am until I come into contact with whatever experience it is. Having a child, moving across the Pacific, buying a home, selling a home, learning something new. We were at Home Depot yesterday, which is like my second home now. And I had this fun little project for kids where you get all these little like pre-cut wood pieces or like, I don't know, little simple pine things, and all these little nails. And the holes are pre-drilled, and then you nail them together and you get this cute little like planter box, and they send you home with this little plastic cup and some seeds for whatever kind of plants you want, and then you get to build this planter box. And it was great. We're downstairs and like has a great big hammer. He goes, I want a hammer. Oh, okay, well, you can help me, but I think I need to help you with this. But that feeling of actually of me holding the hammer, but him doing the hammering, there it was, hammer, hammer, hammer. And then we do the next nail, hammer, hammer, hammer. Nothing else in the whole wide world but just hammering a little tiny nail into a couple of pieces of pine or a planter for cilantro. So you notice it appears in the small ways as well. I have a minor bird, two minor birds who are like the seagulls of Hawaii, kind of. And we have an outdoor lanai, a porch it's got like an A-frame roof over it. There's a big beam, and they can get into the roof rafters in that sort of A, and then there's the beam, and then they go all the way back, and they're making a nest back there. And I think I said something about this last week at John's talk, but they're building a nest up there, and they're making an absolute mess on the porch is unusable while they're doing this project. And my mom told us before we came over here, she'd been over here preparing the house for us and everything. And she said, I've knocked down that myna bird nest 3 or 4 times and they just keep rebuilding it. And my first thought was, oh, the myna birds, they're trying to build a nest and maybe they're going to lay eggs or something. And I got here and I saw, oh yeah, it is a big mess, but we'll figure it out. And I sit here and work every day, and right outside my window, I see them carrying trash up there, little bits of string and straw and stuff. And so there are these two parts of me, one that goes, well, I love wild animals, and it's great if they want to make a home in my home, and welcome and welcome. And then we'll get out of my house. So there's that too. It's kind of fun and surprising that actually, I want them to get out of my house. I didn't know that was a thing for me. I thought I was a wild animal loving person. And I am, but just not in my house and not making such a big mess. And so I've got both hearts. I think I haven't knocked down their nest yet. For one reason, because I can't actually get to the place to plug the hole. It's impossible. And so I figure we'll just be knocking down this nest for the rest of the time we live here until I figure out how to plug it up. But also because it's I think about knocking down, and then I have this incredible tenderness for the myna birds who are just trying to make their house, and they're just, I don't know if they're going to have babies or if they already have babies or what, but so there's that too, that the intimacy doesn't necessarily mean that everything will be resolved. I mean, the intimacy might be the push-pull in me about something. My dad's brother, who is a lifetime alcoholic, is slowly wasting away and has all kinds of problems, and that's been a real journey for my dad, who feels incredibly responsible for his well-being. Brother lives down in Nicaragua and manages a hotel down there, and everything's all messed up, and trusts the wrong people, and so that's a thing, right? It's incredibly this intimate thing about navigating that relationship between how do I be there for him and support him without sort of taking the ride on his drama or whatever, the bed that he's made for himself, So that's where all those easy Psychology Today articles or whatever articles about how to manage your relationships better start to break down. Because some of that stuff might be helpful advice, set firm boundaries, clarify your values, blah, 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 whatever that is, which I think, it's great. I'm a therapist, so I work with people on that stuff. I actually think that's really helpful. But also, this is project that we're doing here is not mutually exclusive. It's not exclusive to that, but it is a larger view. It's also holding all of that goes along with it, and not thinking that we have to exclude parts of it. I talk to a lot of people like that. They're everybody's looking for the magic bullet, or the combinations for the magic bullets about how can I just be at peace. Actually, I'm talking to a guy right now, a really wonderful guy who's like many people I talk to, doesn't have any idea of his own goodness in a way, even though it's totally obvious when you talk to him. He's a real athletic guy, and he loves playing pickleball. He's practiced. And I think he's played in some tournaments and stuff like that. And it's it's one of those things where he really feels his competence and his proficiency and all that. And he had a dream that he was playing pickleball with a woman who he doesn't know who she is. It's just a random woman, and she's beating him, absolutely beating him into the ground. He doesn't know why. And he keeps saying to her, I don't know why you're beating me. You're doing it. You're not even supposed to be good. And I've practiced and I've practiced and I've practiced and I've practiced, but she just keeps beating him. And doing those moves where you just put the ball right over the net. Like that. And then in the dream, he goes to soccer. He's kind of embarrassed to tell me about that. I hit a woman in my dream or whatever, but he wakes up as he's punching the pillow. But why am I telling you that? I can't remember what I was telling you that dream. It was something about being coming into contact again and again and again and again with life that frustrates all of our attempts to know what to do, to be whatever it is, the smartest person in the room, competent, compassionate, insightful, a good business person, moral, a model of fitness, physical and mental health, whatever it is that we're trying to be, world's greatest dad. And so this thing about, well, I can get frustrated about that I'm getting beaten or something, or there might be the possibility that the world's trying to offer me something, that the picture might be larger than that, or that actually having the sort of push-pull in my heart about the minor birds might be what it's about, actually, just what's already there. So it's kind of nice like that. That's where the trust thing comes in. That I don't think I should be having some other life, that I should be someone else. If only I got another degree, that would. That was a big one for me. I thought, well, when I become a teacher, I remember the first time I went to session and I saw John and David sitting up there and talking, and I thought, wow, I want what those guys have. They look so competent and they're so wise. Then I became a teacher and I was terrified. It just absolutely ruined my practice. I thought, wow, when I get a gold rakusu, then I'll feel okay about all this Zen business. And I remember I was running a small koan group at the time, and the first life, I'd gone to session and we did the transmission ceremony, and I came back and ran my group, and it was suddenly like, I couldn't say a single word. So suddenly contending with my identity, whatever my identity was as a teacher, I couldn't say a single word. And still working on that. Still feel like the head monk who stole the robe and bowl that Huinong was supposed to take, and he got transmission, or who tried to steal the robe and bowl. I'm still chasing after myself, trying to find the teacher. But it's kind of nice. That's it too. Maybe that's the second Zen response that I could take with me for the rest of my life. First one is, what is it like to be here? And the second thing is, that's it too. It's just Zen practice in a nutshell. Many more nutshells, but yeah, kind of interesting actually. Interesting to me anyway. Our move from Washington to Hawaii, I could tell that was like a long practice period. That there were all sorts of things going on, and changes in me taking place, and changes in my relationship to the world, and lots of my challenges to my capacity to trust what's happening. That's it too thing. Just seemed like I've never had so many barriers to a single endeavor in my life. It took forever for us to sell our house in Texas. Some of you probably heard this litany before, but I'll give it again because it makes me feel comfortable. It took forever to sell our house in Texas, and then we couldn't find a house in Hawaii, and then Hawaii has this really draconian thing about bringing animals over. You have to either have them quarantined at the airport for 2 weeks because they're terrified of rabies, or you have to have them go jump through all these certification hoops, make sure that they have all their rabies vaccinations, and they have to have a health certificate, and then you have to meet somebody at the airport when you get there, and blah, 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 all that. And so that was taking we were supposed to leave, I think, I don't know, a month or two earlier than we did, but it turned out, oh no, well, you need another rabies vaccine, and blah, blah, blah. And we're going to ship our car on a Matson container, but this was the real cherry on top. I think we'd contracted with the company that moved our belongings, said, oh, well, we don't move cars, but we can help you arrange transport through Matson, through the Tacoma port. Well, great. That sounds great. So we signed up for that. And the day before, we're supposed to drive from Chelan, Washington, where we've been living, about 3.5 hours to Seattle. We're going to drop off our car at the Tacoma airport or the Tacoma port, and then we were going to go to the airport and fly to Hawaii. And so my wife calls the port of Tacoma just to make sure we had all of our paperwork. We had our title, we had our registration, we had, we cleaned the car, we had the crack in the windshield that we had gotten the day before fixed. And the port of Tacoma says, oh no, we don't accept cars anymore. We stopped doing that back in February. So, it was kind of great. Right? Seriously? So my wife calls the moving company and moving company goes, well, who did you set this up with? Oh, Greg? Oh yeah, Greg's no longer with the company. So great. Right up to the last minute, there's just the universe is going, I know what's gonna really fuck with them. I'm gonna make it so they can't move their car. Kind of great. So my wife's on the phone. She's the tougher of the two of us, a much tougher negotiator. And she's on the phone with the guy, and they're like, I can tell she's got him on speakerphone, and they're going back and forth, and got pretty heated. But so there's that. Like, what do you do in that moment where, oh shit, I'm supposed to be leaving tomorrow. It's like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. My flight is in less than 12 hours. What are we going to do with our car? And what do you do in that moment? And for me, there was nothing to do. Absolutely nothing. My wife was arguing with the guy, and that was going to turn out. However, I even tried to, after they'd been arguing for about 20 minutes, I could tell it was not going anywhere because they were just getting more heated, and the other guy was not going to budge. And so I went over and sort of looked at her and like held my hand out, like, give me the phone, I'll give it a try. And she'd give me this look like she was about to set me on fire. Okay, well, I'll leave that to you. What do you do? Makes me think of the Mazu thing about when you can no longer move from where you are. When you can't move and you can't do anything, what do? You make yourself a raft for others. Well, who is others in that moment? It's just the whole universe. That's all. I make myself a raft for myself. Make myself a raft for the birds. Make myself a raft for the trees, and my wife yelling in the other room. And actually, I was coming like after we did that, I had to go into the other room and like see a therapy client, and so that I'm seeing them and saying, "Oh yes, well, tell me about your life," and then she's yelling in the background. It's kind of a hilarious thing that. There's so many moments in life like that where you've got everything all worked out, and then so that's what sort of thing is pilgrimage. So there's that aspect about what sort of thing is fatherhood. I don't know. I'm always discovering it. It might not be the same thing today that it was yesterday or 5 minutes ago. Or what sort of thing is relocating? What sort of thing is Zen? What sort of thing is awakening? That's a big question, right? People have filled libraries with hundreds of thousands of books about what is awakening, what is freedom, what is God. What is it that Zhao Zhou says about knowing is delusion and not knowing is blankness? So it can't be either of those. And when you see it, you'll see like, holy moly, it's this other thing that includes and supersedes all those smaller bits. So not knowing is not even really not knowing, something else, something larger. Well, maybe we'll sit. Seems like a good place to do that. What sort of thing is a bell? What sort of thing is meditation? When you really meet your life, it will be as vast and boundless as outer space. Meditation is a pilgrimage Wandering, seeing what there is to see, forgetting things. You pack your bags and you set out. And a few days later, you look in your bag and you look at what you packed and you go, my God, who packed this bag? Who thought a jar full of random screws was an important thing to take on a pilgrimage across the Pacific Ocean? Who thought 12 hardback books and no underwear was a smart idea? He's from Basho's haiku from his wanderings. Half asleep on horseback, I saw, as if in a dream, a distant moon and a line of smoke for the morning tea. He says, I do not wear a single piece of metal on my belt, nor do I carry anything but a sack on my shoulder. My head is clean shaven, and I have a string of beads in my hand. I am indeed dressed like a priest, but priest I am not, for the dust of the world still clings to me. The keeper of the inner shrine prevented me from entering the holy seat of the god because my appearance was like a Buddhist priest. The keeper of the inner shrine prevented me from entering the holy seat of the god because my appearance was like a Buddhist priest. Towards the end of the day, I stopped at a small tea house where a young woman named Butterfly handed me a small piece of white silk and asked me to write a poem choosing her name as the subject. What the world's always doing, isn't it? Hands us a small piece of white silk and asks us to write a poem choosing its name as the subject. He writes, a butterfly poised on a tender orchid, how sweetly the incense burns on its wings. Where are you going after this? I'm on pilgrimage. What sort of thing is pilgrimage? I don't know. Not knowing is most intimate. I wonder, where are you going after this? What sort of thing is that? Do you know? is most intimate. Even not knowing about the knowing. Just to wander the road of your meditation. That's it. Some more from Basho's journeys. Even a horse is a spectacle. I cannot help stopping to see it on the morning of snow. Even a horse is a spectacle. It's like kind of an amazing thing. Even a hedge is a spectacle. Even a person, even your own face is a spectacle. It's kind of like reminds me of like taking acid when I was younger, and then you go look in the mirror. Whoa! And it's kind of like coming out of meditation. I go in the mirror or something, and that reminds me of something else I was going to bring in. Yeah, from Dongshan's 5 ranks. It's past midnight. The moon has not yet risen. In the deep dark we see a face from long ago, but you don't recognize her. Don't think that's strange. You find yourself to be an old woman. You're sleeping late. When you wake up, you come upon an ancient mirror of meditation. And you see your own face clearly. Try not to lose sight of it again and go chasing shadows. It's like almost a challenge, like good luck. Try not to lose sight of it. You have about 30 seconds and I will lose sight of it. And there's a couple of haiku from Basho that say the thing about like the empathy with the world, the feeling with the Mina. I picked my way through a mountain road and I was greeted by a smiling violet. Do you know that moment? The flowers smile at you, they greet you, And one more, wild sparrows in a patch of yellow rapeseed, pretending to admire the flowers. Kind of street thing. So there's this thing about when I allow myself to fall into the pilgrimage, then everyone and everything is accompanying me, wherever it is that I'm going, for better or worse. And the thing about the not knowing what things are, or in some way not being impressed by or wedded to my ideas about the way things are, it's incredible how they can transform us. I have a friend who I met when I was living in San Antonio, and I keep in touch with him. And he's retired, or sort of semi-retired, and he had moved to San Antonio, Texas, a couple of years ago, and absolutely hates it there. And every time we talk, that's like the whole conversation would just be about how much he hates San Antonio. He's originally from New Jersey, but his home is really in Keene, New Hampshire, which is quite a bit different than San Antonio. And so everything in San Antonio is like measured up against Keene, New Hampshire, which is amazing, wonderful place, and I'm sure it is wonderful, but I could tell that hating San Antonio was sort of true for him, but also there was, when we really hate something like that, I kind of think I don't know, what's that doing for you to hate something that much, That this seems like protective in its own way. You have a big opinion. Blender just went off downstairs. Like the more extreme the opinion gets, it's like there's some kind of strange quality about it. Starts to become a dream that we live in, whether it's we hate some person or something or someplace, or we just love some person or something. And nothing wrong with loving people and things, but you also notice it can become a dream that we live in that keeps us from the world. Really, like thing about, well, I just love birds and nature, and also I want this fucking minor bird to get off my porch. Like there's got to be room for all of it, right? That is, when you finally see it, your life will be as vast and boundless as outer space, and that includes the loving, the hating, the fucking, the fighting, the kicking the minor bird out of the nest, the heartbreak when I realize they've already laid eggs or whatever. It's all included, And so that some adolescent part of me, I think, always makes sure that I swear at some point every Dharma talk, because we got to include the F word here and there. But anyway, so my friend has this incredibly negative opinion of San Antonio, and whenever I talk to him, there's like some part of me that keeps trying to like improve his outlook, modify, give him helpful suggestions about how he could hate San Antonio less. Even though when I look back, actually, I hate San Antonio too, which is kind of funny. So I don't know, who am I trying to convince? But and then he started talking about San Antonio as the city of death. The city of death, which is kind of true in a way for him. His brother died shortly after moving there. His brother-in-law died not too long after. His mother-in-law just died, and about 6 months ago, he got a diagnosis of cancer. I remember talking to him almost immediately after he got the diagnosis, and the doctor had a plan and everything, and he was kind of bewildered and frightened and wondering, obviously, what does this mean for me? Whatever plans he may have had for his life were all tossed up, they're all in question. And but what he noticed is, it was really interesting. A couple weeks after talking to him, he started talking like a Zen person. He'd never done any Zen before. He started talking like a Zen person. He just said, well, I've just got to be completely in the moment because that's the only thing that I have. I don't know. He started immunotherapy, so it's like body was in revolt, and said, I don't know how much energy I'm going to have. I don't know if I'm going to be able to concentrate on anything. I can't make plans beyond maybe the next hour because I might need to take a nap, or I might feel sick, and so that agenda thing about so much of his life was like caught up in hating San Antonio and simultaneously trying to see if he could find a place there. And then suddenly he was just thrust deeper into his life. And he started kind of tossing things overboard, like a big diagnosis like that often does, or a tragedy or something. It starts bringing in, like, it's time to clarify what's important. Right? So he had been working this like part-time job that he didn't really like, but it kept him connected to his profession. And he thought, I don't want to do this anymore. So he quit. He said, I didn't really need the money. I was just doing it to feel like I had an identity, really, to feel like I was still kind of worth something, that I had something to offer the world. And so he quit. And then a couple of weeks later, he said, I don't miss that at all. I don't miss the money. I don't miss the work. I don't miss the BS. I don't miss any of that stuff. And he started going through his paperwork, and he started like doing less of things that he realized he didn't really want to do, but he was doing for some, whatever the reason was. So it's an interesting thing in that way. I also started feeling incredibly close to him. Like our relationship became more intimate because he didn't have this big thing about my life is defined by my hatred of the place that I live, or whatever it is. My life is defined by my hatred of the current political person, or my, whatever. He no longer had something kind of safe to identify himself by. And I found myself, I don't know, I loved him. I always thought he was kind of neat, but there was room for me to love him in there. And it says an amazing thing about like the stuff that the Zen people are saying. It's not just for those of us who practice meditation. Actually, the world is always acting on all of us in that way. It's asking us to come closer. It's encouraging us to throw overboard the things that are getting in the way of that intimacy, or at least look at our relationship to the things that are getting in the way. And he's doing pretty well, if you're wondering. He's doing pretty well so far. But I can tell that it's changed him. And now he wants to go back to New Hampshire, and he still might, but there's not that desperation about, I've got to get out of this place that I hate and go back to this other place that I love. I kind of realized, even if I did go back, I'm not the same person who left, and it wouldn't be the same place that I'm going back to. It's not like I could just go back and see all the friends that I had and just start right back up again, because things have changed. That's the pilgrimage thing too, about I want to do a retreat one of these days about coming home after the pilgrimage, because that's a whole thing in and of itself. Right? When the journey changes you and you return home and things have changed and you've changed, some things no longer fit. I got here and never had much regard for Hawaiian culture when I grew up here. I just thought, I don't know, whatever. And I come back and I'm like out gardening, which I've never been interested in whatsoever. And I found these long, skinny leaves from this plant. And I thought, are those the hollow? The weave mats and hats and things out of lauhala, which means the hollow leaf. Is that lauhala? I should try to weave a mat. And so I started weaving a mat. I spent like 3 hours weaving a mat. Like, who is this person? And it's just incredible in that way, I don't have some big idea about myself or what I love, or then lots of possibilities. So let's do the thing where we hear from people other than me. Holly, do you want to say anything?
As Jordan was playing, I was watching Duncan, who on my screen is on the screen above him, moving from side to side. And it was such a tender thing. We humans listening to music and not knowing what note is going to come next.
Nice. Even a horse is a spectacle. I cannot help stopping this. Even a Duncan is a spectacle. That's great. Duncan, do you want to say anything now that you've been outed?
I'm glad that somebody enjoyed that. I was enjoying the music quite a bit, and this is my second time joining the group, and I've just really enjoyed it and appreciated all of it. So grateful to be here, and thank you.
Yes, welcome. That's part of I'm sure Amaryllis knows which piece this is, but may you have joy and others' joy. It's part of one of our liturgies or something. It's kind of a beautiful thing. Bob, do you want to say anything? I feel like I haven't seen you in forever.
I'm really caught up, Jesse, in the whole thing that you've been doing today, and we've been doing today, and especially I will be sending you pictures of 2 or 3 jars of screws that have followed me, and realizing that the jar that I'm working with now and most attracted to is it's empty, and that seems to be where the journey is. So we'll see what fills it up. But those other jars, I'm glad you brought it with you. It's important. You may need it. You will need it, actually, at some point. The jar of opinions and stuff is what I thought. But it's getting less so. And that's a good thing. And we'll see what shows up, the new jar. So thanks, Jesse. Thanks today.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Bob. And actually, to your point, I just so happened to have 4 screws that all matched, because the screws that my clothes dryer manufacturer sent me didn't fit. And so sometimes you do need the screws.
There you go.
There you go.
In the moment, right?
Yeah, right. You can even drop the opinion that I shouldn't have brought the screws.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Brian Huffer, do you want to say anything?
Well, I have a bag of screws in my garage and a bag of nails too. So if you need something, I'm here for you. That Cohen is has been a very useful companion to me. And I've noticed how I feel that I need to know things. I've noticed how it separates me from people, and particularly from my partner too, who will often say, just for conversation's sake, I wonder this and I wonder that. And I know that I've taken that personally, like I should know. This is a question, I need to answer it. And then I'd get defensive if I don't know it, you know. And I've just noticed how much closer I am when I let that go to people. I don't know. I love it.
Beautiful. We just, in a gathering, we just sat with the saying, each person is an 8,000 foot precipice. It's like that, isn't it? You just press yourself up against, or you leap off or something. Either way works probably. Yeah, I like the thing about like, yeah, I think I ought to know, and so probably the other person thinks that I ought to know, and so then, and then it's like, where am I? Not here, that's for sure. Not hearing the birds and thanks. What else can I squeeze? Gina, you want to say anything?
Sure. I really love our jars of screws that we've probably had for 40 years. So, and they do come in handy, and we make contact with them pretty frequently. I've been feeling like I haven't been myself as I've known me for a while, and kind of traipsing back and forth between then and now and what might be. And it feels involuntary, like I can't stop trying to find that out, and it's scary, and then it's okay, and then it's all right, and then it's terrifying, and just that sense that I used to have that I knew myself, and it probably wasn't real even then. But so there's a lot of that kind of stuff floating around, and it's like the crows that we've been living with here for 8 years, and getting to know over that time, and the relationship we have with them keeps changing, and they keep surprising us. Like for years we didn't put water in the bird bath because we couldn't tolerate the entrails being washed, and now they're getting closer, and we have more of a deepened relationship, and we're really kind of happy to see that they got the lizard that they're washing. It's like, but then feeling those mixed feelings like, and oh, but they've just been nesting and they have babies, so we're needing to give them, they're coming for food 3 times a day now instead of just 1. And so there's this constant rolling closeness that's growing with these people that we can't ever know, and there's something in that.
Corey, do you want to say anything?
Oh, thanks, Jesse. I've really enjoyed this conversation because it's like the weather. You know, I have all these plans, and then we've had everything from snow to 84 degrees to, you know, fierce wind to whatever. And I don't know, everything's just topsy-turvy. I was trying to make pancakes this morning, and I didn't have any of the ingredients that I wanted. You know, I thought, it's like the weather. It's like that. And I went out to get a piece of wood, and there was a ground squirrel running as hard as he could toward me and went into the wood pile. I thought, okay, Okay. Substitutions.
Makes you wonder if like people started Zen because they were just ill prepared for things and they thought, well, we'll just make a spiritual practice out of this. I did that on purpose, not knowing as much. Good. Maybe we'll sit for a few more minutes. See what happens. You can just notice that Zhao thing about knowing is delusion, not knowing is blankness. It's not really about either one of those. It's almost like the image I get is this convection current of the ideas and the thoughts and the opinions and the plans and the agendas and all those things come up. They just come up. I mean, where do they come from anyway? I haven't found a place yet. They just come up and they, like Corey said about the weather, the clouds come up, they pass over, they rain, they dissipate. They come up again, they pass over, they rain, they dissipate. There isn't anyone yet who's found a way to stop the flow of life. And Basho is on the road trying to make himself a skeleton, a bare skeleton exposed to the elements. And when Jordan and Amaryllis are ready, they're gonna show us the way. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Jordan and Amaryllis. It was beautiful. And thanks to everyone who spoke and didn't speak. And God, thanks for giving me, a real reason to be here this morning. It's just wonderful to be with you all.